Hello everyone. In this video, I'll be showing you how to use a light microscope and how to correctly streak for isolation using the quadrant method. So before we learn how to use a light microscope, we need to know the anatomy of a light microscope, or at least the most important parts of the light microscope. So here we have the eyepiece. This is how you see the specimen that you put on the light microscope. Over here, you have objective lenses. Now, as you can see, I have 3 objective lenses. Depending on your model, you may have different magnifications, but mine right now is currently on the lowest setting. This is 4 times magnification, this is 10 times magnification, and this is 40 times magnification. Keep in note that the eyepiece also has magnification. This eyepiece specifically has 10 times magnification. So for example, if this has 10 times magnification and the objective lens is on the 4 times magnification, the total magnification is 40 times. So for other parts, we have the stage here. This is where you set the microscope slide in order to view the specimen that you want to view. Down here and up here, we have illuminators. This is the bottom illuminator, this is the top illuminator. What these do is they shine light from above onto the specimen, or they shine light from below and shine light from underneath, hitting upwards towards the specimen. And in the middle here, you can see that there's a little hole. And if you look underneath here, there's also a hole here. That is what is known as a diaphragm. This is what the light from the bottom illuminator, it allows light to shine through it and hit the specimen. Over here, another feature of the diaphragm is that you can change the lens on the diaphragm, which allows you to change basically the intensity of the light that's shining in the specimen and the color of the light that's shining in the specimen. So finally, we have the coarse adjustment knob, which allows you to change the position of the stage. And we have these switches, which allow you to shine the top illuminator or the bottom illuminator. So now that we know how a microscope works, I'm going to show you how to use a light microscope, or how to set it up first. Before we actually learn how to use a light microscope, we need to first set up these microscope slides. What we do with these microscope slides is we put the specimens we want to view on these and put it on the light microscope in order to view them. So I have plenty of pre-prepared microscope slides with my kit. However, for the purposes of this demonstration, I'll be showing you how to set up a microscope slide using a drop of water. And we will be viewing microbes in that drop of water. So what you're going to want to do is right here, I have my sample of water that I'm going to be drawing water from. And over here, I have cover slips. What I'll do basically is I'll put a drop of water from the water sample onto the microscope slide, and I will use the cover slip in order to put that on the water drop so it spreads evenly across the microscope slide. So first what I'll do is I will draw in with a clean pipette some water from my water sample, and I'll put a drop of water onto the clear middle part of the microscope slide. So now that I have that, I'm going to dispose of this pipette. And I'm going to take a plastic cover slip. It looks like this. It's a circular, clear plastic piece of plastic, and I'm going to place it gently onto the drop of water so that it spreads evenly throughout the microscope slide. And now we have a prepared microscope slide. Keep in note that the reason why I dispose of the pipette instead of chucking the water back in the water sample and then disposing of it is because I could have potentially contaminated the water sample with extra bacteria, which in some situations you may not want to do. So now that we have our prepared microscope slide, we're going to first start by lowering the slide all the way down so that we may place our microscope slide center like this. Note, keep in mind the diaphragm in the middle of the stage has to be lined up with the clear portion of the microscope or the microscope slide. That is so that the water sample that you have is centered with the diaphragm, so it's aligned with the magnification or the objective lens, as well as the light that shines from underneath it. So now that you've lowered it all the way, place the microscope slide, what you're going to do is you're going to use your coarse adjustment knob and raise the stage all the way up, And note that I have my objective lens on the lowest magnification. You need to always have it on the lowest magnification for this part. So keeping it on the lowest magnification, I'm going to turn on either illuminator. For me, I am able to visualize the microbes best with the top illuminator, but whatever illuminator you use will depend on the sample that you're viewing. So I'm going to basically while viewing the specimen, you'll notice that most of the time you won't be able to see a clear image, and that's okay. Because this is raised all the way up, what we're going to do is we're going to use the coarse adjustment knob while looking at the specimen to slowly lower the stage until we are able to visualize our sample. And you'll know when you'll be able to see a clear image. And there we go. Oh, I actually see something in there. That's pretty cool. So now that it's adjusted, you are able to freely change between objective lenses and view your specimens. And that is how you use a light microscope. So for the second part of this video, I will show you how to streak for isolation using the quadrant method. So first thing you're going to want to do is take a wax pencil and your agar plate. Notice how the bigger cover of the agar plate is facing down onto the table, with the smaller or more narrow part with the agar on it facing upwards. You want to keep it like that, and what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to draw 4 quadrants. Your first quadrant is going to be over here, like this. I'm going to mark this as number 1. Your second quadrant is going to be over here, like this. Mark that number 2. Your third quadrant is going to be over here, like this, number 3. And fourth quadrant is going to be over here in the middle, number 4. What we're doing with streaking for isolation is basically we're going to be diluting the concentration of the bacteria that's in the sample by going from the first quadrant, then to the second quadrant, then the third quadrant, then the fourth quadrant. Now, I don't have any real media on me or any real bacteria. This is vegetable oil. For the purpose of this experiment, I decided to use vegetable oil so that way I don't accidentally contaminate myself or my cameraman. So if you notice here, I have plastic disposable inoculation loops for this experiment. Now, you may have a different set of inoculation loops, or you might have a metal inoculation loop. If you have a metal inoculation loop, the procedure might go a little bit differently than how I'm doing it. If you are using a metal inoculation loop, instead of basically disposing of the inoculation loop that I will be doing while doing this experiment, you're going to take your metal inoculation loop, and let's pretend this is a flame for now. You're going to hold the ring part of the metal inoculation loop over an open flame, which is usually going to be lit by a Bunsen burner, for 3 to 4 seconds until it's sterile. And then before you actually streak for isolation, you're going to place your metal inoculation loop in one of the quadrants and then start your streak for isolation. So now that we have our agar plate marked and we have our plastic inoculation loops and our media, the first thing I'm going to want to do is I'm going to take one sterile plastic inoculation loop. I'm going to open the media. I'm going to dip the inoculation loop in the media, making sure it got covered. It has a reasonable amount of media on the inoculation loop. You'll notice because it looks like a bubble one, and you'll see, oh hey, if this were a bubble one, I'll be able to blow a bubble through it. Don't actually blow bubbles through it. This is bacteria. So now we're going to take our agar plate. I'm going to turn it over and cover it like so, and I'm going to start in quadrant 1, going in diagonal strokes like so. Now, the technique that you'll be using for streaking for isolation, you'll not want to go too vertical, so to tear the agar, or too flat, as to not actually basically spread any bacteria evenly. You want to do just right. And furthermore, don't tear the auger. If you tear the auger while you're streaking for isolation, that's very bad and will lead to bad outcomes for your experiment. Okay, so now that I've streaked in quadrant 1, I'm going to quickly close the agar plate before it gets more contaminated. I've disposed of the plastic inoculation loop I used to streak quadrant 1, and now I'll take another plastic inoculation loop that's sterile. I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees counterclockwise, and I'm going to open the auger plate, and going from the corner of quadrant 1 to the corner of quadrant 2, I'm going to directionally streak like so. Now, I'm going to take this plastic inoculation loop, I'm going to dispose of it. Now that I'm done streaking quadrant 2, I'm going to quickly close the agar plate to avoid contamination. I'm going to rotate the plate counterclockwise 90 degrees. So I'm going to take another plastic inoculation loop, and now I'm going to open the agar plate, and I'm going to, furthermore, from the corner of quadrant 2 and quadrant 3, I'm going to directionally streak like so. Being careful not to tear the auger. So I'm going to cap this. I'm going to dispose of the plastic inoculation loop, and now finally I'm going to take another plastic inoculation loop, and I'm going to rotate counterclockwise 90 degrees, and I'm going to open the agar plate, and I'm going to, from the corner of quadrant 3, I'm going to start here and diagonally spread this out across quadrant 4 like so. Now, keep in mind this is a dilution, so do not touch any of the other quadrants. Don't touch quadrant 3, don't touch quadrant 2, don't touch quadrant 1. Otherwise, you're going to spread those highly concentrated areas of bacteria into quadrant 4. You're going to ruin the purpose of this experiment. I'm going to cap the agar plate now. Rotate counterclockwise 90 degrees, and now this is ready for incubation. And that is how you streak for isolation using the quadrant method.